Today's Ask Me Anything goes out to Zachary Davidson, who says, "Hi Robert, I have a 5-month-old German Shepherd and your videos are very helpful. Thank you. I was wondering what's a good line to have a finished dog. What are the stages of what I should teach?" So you're looking for a timeline, and that timeline doesn't really exist. I wish it kind of did, but I tell you how it kind of exists is 3 years. In 3 years, we expect a dog to be finished and understand everything at that point. We can kind of tweak it and make it perfect. But at that 2 to 3 year window is when dogs start competing. Dogs should know everything. So, you know, the first 6 months or so, we're luring and shaping things. 6 to 12 months, we're kind of focusing on putting commands on. 12 to 18 months, we're putting corrections in and layering corrections in and adding distractions and stuff like that. I've never done a timeline before, but it's really flowing really well. And at that 2 year window, we're just really proofing everything. So there you go. So 6 months, 6 to 9 months, then that 12-month window, 18-month window, 24-month, and 36-month window. But it all has to, that's based on, you know, the normalcy of a dog, that the dog can understand all the luring and shaping, can start to understand the verbal commands, hand signals coming in, and then the dog can start to understand the distractions and the corrections, and that the dog can understand the proofing exercises when things, you know, are really thrown at them. So just go slow with your dog. If he's 5 months old, you know, it's always better to go slower and expect less. Well, I mean, expect more of the dog, but be understanding if the dog doesn't get it. Too many people get too frustrated with the dog. They see me training Goofy or, you know, or Dwayne or Maya, and they go, "Oh, my dog should be perfect like that." But your dog might not be, right? Maya is nowhere near where Goofy is on comprehension, on obedience, on biddability, on learning, on engagement, or anything like that. She's very frustrating to me sometimes, but I love her just the same. She's staring at me while I'm saying this. "I'm sorry, you're not that smart, Maya." I say that to her all the time, but I love her just the same. They're both my dogs. I mean, Goofy is brilliant, but also I've had Goofy, you know, as a young pup, so I taught him a lot of things, you know, in that early luring and shaping phase that I didn't get to do with Maya. And depending on how your dog learns, it could take a little bit longer. But use that as a guide. You know, 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, 24 months, and then, you know, I would expect the dog by 3 years to be perfect, as good as it's going to be. The 3 to 5 year window, to me, the dog is completely done and is not going to get any better. After that, they might just get worse. They might start to diminish. I have a 10-month-old male Belgian Malinois. His recall was amazing at the start, around 6 months. But recently, he's not listened at all, inside or outside the house. His recall is only when he wants to. That's not a recall, by the way. That's not a recall. Doesn't bring back toys anymore when playing fetch. Any advice? Think it's best to probably start back at the start of training with him, but not sure how to. So that's a great question, and it's not uncommon. So what happens in training with dogs? We work through the luring phase and the reward phase and the obedience phase, but we don't work past the distraction phase or the proofing phase, right? So which goes into the correction phase. So you have not corrected, so he's coming and coming and coming, and you think he's got it, and he does have it, he does got it. But when he doesn't want to got it, he doesn't do it. And that's what you're facing now. And this can happen with any dog, not just a Malinois. It can happen with any kind of a more stubborn dog. And the dog decides, well, what if I don't do it? And that's the phase you have to work through. That's where the dog training gets real, where it becomes training, as opposed to asking and it happening. So during the training phase, we now have to correct the dog for disobedience, right? You can go back to the beginning, which isn't a bad idea, but you're never going to work through the tougher part, which is the correction. So at this 10-month window, which usually happens right around 9 to 10 months, is very normal, the dog starts feeling his oats and says, well, I don't really have to come, right? It's like a teenager who finally just one day says, well, you told me to be home at 9, but what if I don't? What if I don't make it home at 9? That's where your dog is in his mental capacity. He's thinking, what if I don't want to come? And that's where you need to put a correction on the dog. You need to use a long line or go up and grab the dog and tell him, no, I said come. And you need to make the dog do what you've asked the dog to do. That's not unfair. It's not inhumane. It's correcting a bad behavior. People who don't correct for bad behavior accept substandard behavior. They accept disobedience, and they try to lure the dog through it. Then they start to hold hot dogs up and go, no, come, come, come. And then they start to hold something else up, and they're bribing the dog. And you don't want to bribe the dog. You want to lure the dog to teach him what you want. You want to reward the dog for doing what you asked the dog to do. And then you want to correct the dog for not doing what you asked them to do. And then you can give them praise and reward again. But without a correction, dog training falls apart. And that's where I always have these differences with people who profess positive only training, because it's very, very hard to proof a dog through that when the dog does not or decides not to be compliant. That's what I would suggest you do. Put some corrections on the dog, and I think you'll have a wonderful, wonderful relationship with your dog, because it will be clear to the dog what you want and what you will and won't accept. Question, and in no way negative, trying to understand. In a few of your videos, you mentioned not giving the stay command. I noticed with this dog, you give the stay command and come instead of yes to release. Was there a difference with this dog, hence the approach? Just trying to learn and wondering the difference. First of all, I don't take offense to anything, right? You can ask me any question you want. I don't think anybody's trying to offend me, and so therefore I appreciate the question. So it will always depend on the dog. In formal obedience, I don't like to give dogs a stay command. Now, I will occasionally tell the dog to stay if I think they don't know the obedience as much. I might help them along with it. But once a dog is trained, if I say plots, it's plots. I don't say plots and stay, or down and stay, or sit and stay. That, you know, in obedience, the command supersedes whatever comes after it. In other words, if I say down and walk away, then the down, is more important than me walking away. If somebody else says, hey, or come, or whatever to my dog, my down is more important than that. In other words, my command is what it is, and that's it. If I add a stay to it, I'm just kind of hedging my bets and giving the dog a second thing he can fail. So if I say to my dog, down, stay, and I walk away from him, then if he gets up, he's breaking the down and the stay. Right? So the idea really is that you want to get the dog to understand it. If I'm working with a pet dog that's learned stay, and I'm trying to teach it, or a puppy that hasn't been really solidly taught that down means stay, I might put a stay in there and then start to fade it away. So, and again, I don't know which video this was on, because I don't keep track of when they ask me anything, questions come in. But if I give a come command, I rarely will call a dog come out of a stay, because I don't think it's a really good idea. So more than likely I was working with something on a dog that had some other training that I was trying to change. So follow my basic obedience guides, because it'll give you a really good picture of how I want the dog to learn from beginning to end. Occasionally you'll see me working with clients' dogs or a shelter dog that might have had different training, and I need to use a little different approach. And that should also teach you that you can use many different approaches in training your dog to make the training a lot more fun and a lot more beneficial for all the dogs, not just the really great obedience ones. It says, should heel and focus heel be a different command/word? And Carter Living, which I don't think is your real name, maybe it is, says, awesome video. Would you recommend traditional heel and focus heel be separate commands? If we're on a normal walk, I don't want my dog to feel they have to look at me the entire time. So that is a very, very great point, and a lot of people make this mistake. So heel, if you say heel to the dog, or foos, or whatever your word is, then that dog should be on a focused heel. You should, if you're teaching obedience, and the dog should be on a focused heel, looking at you, watching you, and next to you, and not diverting from that position one bit. The mistake people make, now if you just have a pet dog and you're just teaching him heel, that heel is walk next to you, that's not a big deal, right? That's not an issue at all, because then all the dog knows is heel. But we're talking here about focused heeling. So if you're teaching your dog focused heeling, then the dog must understand the difference between a focused heel and a loose leash walk. So for me, if I tell my dog foos, the dog will get into heel position, will look at me, will walk at my heel, or my foos, my step, my left foot step, the entire time, and not diverting his gaze. And if he looks away for 1 second, he's going to get corrected, because he shouldn't be doing that. That's something I use in competition or in demonstrations. If I just want the dog on a very loose leash walk, in other words, walking with me in the street, then I give him the command of let's go. Now, some people will put the dog into a focused heel if there's a distraction, and you can do that. But then that should be a different command. Before you ask me what that word should be, it doesn't matter. It can be anything you want it to be. You need to pick that word, you need to decide what that word is going to be, and you need to stay focused on that word. So I hope that answers it for you. Make sure you have a clear communication with your dog. And check out my website, robertcabral.com, for a great member section with lots of dog training videos. And subscribe to my YouTube channel as well.